Hi, Pastor Ed here with Daily Devotions for Wednesday, June the 14th, 2023. Continuing to look at our reading from Genesis 12, the end of Genesis 11, beginning of Genesis 12 this past Sunday. And we're actually going to spend in our Sunday morning worship 8 weeks exploring the life and the faith of Abraham. And so we'll be doing that during our daily devotions as well. Yesterday, we looked at verse 1, and I'm going to repeat that and also read verses 2 and 3 as well. Now the Lord said to Abram, "Go from your country and your kindred and your father's house to the land that I will show you." And then in verse 2 and 3, "I will make of you a great nation, and I will bless you, make your name great so that you will be a blessing. I'll bless those who bless you, and the one who curses you I will curse, and in you all the families of the earth shall be blessed." I want to kind of just go back and kind of give an overview of what's happening here. So here in chapter 12, we have the beginning of a new section in the book of Genesis. As I said in my sermon on Sunday, the first 10 and a half to 11 chapters are often called primeval history. I call it prehistory. These are the events that took place before anything was ever written down. Any dates were associated with them. We have no idea how far apart they occurred or whatever. There seems to be evidence in other cultures and even geological evidence that some of the things that are described in those chapters really did take place. We just can't figure out, there's no way of dating them. And then the last remaining chapters, beginning here in 12 with Abraham, are called the patriarchal history because they talk about Abraham and Isaac and Jacob's sons as well. Interesting things about Abraham. Nearly 1/4 of the book of Genesis is dedicated to his life. Over 40 New Old Testament references are made to Abraham. It's also of interest to note that Islam holds Abram in second in importance to Muhammad, with the Quran referring to Abraham 188 times. And in the New Testament, there are 75 references to Abraham. Paul chose Abraham as the finest example of a man justified by God, before God by faith through faith rather than works in Romans 4. James referred to Abraham as a man who demonstrated his faith by his works, James 2. The writer to the Hebrews pointed to Abraham as an illustration of a man who walked by faith, devoting more space to him than any other individual in chapter 11. We read a couple of those verses on Sunday as well. We'll come back to them at the end of the week. And also in Galatians chapter 3, Paul wrote that Christians are sons of Abraham by faith and therefore rightful heirs of the blessings promised to him. And so we also have in Acts 7, Stephen recounting the history. "Hear me, brothers and fathers, the God of glory appeared to our father Abraham when he was in Mesopotamia before he lived in Haran, and said to him, 'Depart from your country and your relatives, come to the land that I will show you.'" So not sure exactly when Abraham, but he left Ur. If you have a map of the ancient Middle East, Ur would be kind of in the bottom right-hand corner of a map that shows where Babylon, Mesopotamia, where the Tigris and Euphrates rivers, the Fertile Crescent. He would have followed that up to Haran, where they stayed for a time before then descending down the coast again to the land of Canaan, to Shechem. And in between, of course, all this, it's sort of like an arch over top of the desert, and that would have been very difficult to go through the desert. So that's why they followed what was the normal way of traveling in those days. Of course, it's a command of God that sends Abraham on his way. A very specific command. He was told in detail that he must leave behind: his country, his relatives, his father's house. God was going to make of him a new nation, not merely revise an existing one. But on the other hand, God's command was deliberately vague as well. What was left to be left behind was crystal clear. What lay ahead was pretty much devoid of detail, simply to the land that I will show you. And of course, there was the covenant. The covenant actually doesn't really come about until Genesis 15, but here there's three major promises that form the backbone of that covenant. That Abraham will be given a land, that a great nation will be descended from him, and that he will be blessed. And not just blessed so that he could benefit from these blessings, but blessed to be a blessing. And so those are the framework of Abraham's call. Talk a little bit more about all of this and his travels tomorrow as we continue our discussion of the call of Abraham. Till then, take care. Have a great day. Bye-bye.